What is the best way to get around London? By bicycle? On foot? Tube? Or boat? Many Londoners would say it has to be by bus, double-decker bus. Tower Bridge, the Greenwich Meridian or the British Museum. Buses can take you anywhere. If the bus you ride doesn't go to one, change for another. London buses carry not just passengers, but also the history, heart and soul of the city. London was once the capital of an empire that ruled nearly a quarter of the Earth's land area. Today, it is an international metropolis whose heart beats in time to the global economy. Stephen Perry is 70 and a Londoner. He currently serves as the chairman of the 48 Group, a British trade organisation. His daughter, 38-year-old Jodie, also works for the organisation.
Okay. My work since I left university where I studied law has all been with China. In the first years, it was buying and selling what China wanted to buy and sell. And then when reform and opening up happened, we could look at trying to put deals together which were long-term.
The long-established 48 Group is a platform serving both Chinese and British companies. It provides policy interpretation, information consultancy, legal assistance and other services. Stephen is the chairman, as well as the most influential consultant to the group. At the end of March every year, Stephen and his daughter visit a cemetery in Hampstead Garden suburb in North London to pay their respects to Stephen's father, Jack. In June 1953, a 16-strong delegation from Britain broke through the barriers of the time and arrived in Beijing. Leading the delegation was the chairman of the London Export Corporation, Jack Perry. The next year, Jack and 47 other UK political and business leaders visited China again for formal trade talks. They were the icebreakers for Sino-British relations, who later became the 48 Group, a bridge for trade between the two nations ever since. Jack Perry died in 1997. In accordance with the wishes expressed in his will, his son Stephen scattered his ashes in the cemetery without raising a headstone.
And even today, quite a number of people still don't approve of what we do, but I think with time, people can see that China has returned as a major nation. And my father had a lot to do with that. Not it's the Chinese people who brought the Chinese economy to return, but it was people like my father who were brave enough to stand up against a lot of opposition.
After the death of his father, Stephen continued in his father's path. In 2013, when the Belt and Road Initiative was proposed, Stephen became one of the first to take an interest in and study the BRI in aspects such as policy and economics.
I used to explain to people in 2013 what BRI was to big companies. They would look at me and think I was mad. And I said, well, when you're ready, we'll talk about it some more. And now they're realizing that they can either sit back and try and protect the West behind a bamboo curtain, but then they lose half the world's markets, or they're going to work with Chinese companies to open up this whole vast area called Eurasia, rebuild the Middle East, and create an industrial revolution in Africa. And if that isn't enough for the businesses of the world for the next 100 years, I don't have any better ideas than that.
In the 6 years since the launch of the BRI, China has invested heavily in the infrastructure development of countries along the route. Railways, ports and hospitals have been built and a large number of projects launched to benefit different peoples around the world. These have become an important part of Perry's evaluation of the BRI.
China invested heavily in the infrastructure of China before it started building the urbanization. And the same is going to be true of BRI. I think we'll see a great urbanization occurring starting in about 15 or 20 years' time, once the basic infrastructure is in place. These three features, socialism with Chinese characteristics, BRI, and community of shared future, underpin everything that China is doing. And I've spent a lot of time studying those three things in order to better understand how Chinese leaders are thinking. Sometimes I get it right.
On December 18, 2018, a conference was held in Beijing to celebrate the 40th anniversary of China's reform and opening up. The Chinese government awarded Stephen Perry the China Reform Friendship Medal for his work as a promoter of Sino-British economic and trade exchanges.
President Xi Jinping, he's the most remarkable leader in the world that I've come across. When I met him, I was sitting there watching him and listening to him talk, and I thought, you're a philosopher. I've never met a leader like you who's a philosopher. It explains it in very simple language, but it's a basic philosophy. Socialism with Chinese characteristics, BRI and Community of Shared Future, they're philosophies. But his philosophies come from practice.
Returning home from China, Stephen shared his experience of meeting President Xi at the annual meeting of the 48 Group.
Later in the year, I had the incredibly good fortune to meet President Xi Jinping, and President Xi was very clear about welcoming the icebreakers and their anniversary, but also about the potential for Sino-British relations.
For more than half a century, the Perry family has kept faith with the icebreaker spirit. Generations have shared the moments when the history was shaped and share the hope for a better future for the world and for the world to have a better understanding of China. This is how Perry interprets the BRI.
So sharing is the essence of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and sharing is the essence of BRI.